Ronde de jambes tend to pose some challenges. When we are lengthening to the front, we don't always cross over enough. We'll sometimes inadvertently open our leg further than where it should be. So we want to make sure that whether we're going from first or from fifth, that we are crossing to our fourth position. If we were to put our foot down, we should be in a fourth position. This happens when we go to the front and when we go to the back. I see dancers tend to cut their leg off a little too early instead of reaching all the way around to that fourth position that should be placed in back before pulling it through. This is a common error, and we want to try to make sure that we're really cleaning that up, because that, again, as I've said in previous videos, it's all about the hips. So we want to really be able to open up the hip, and we want to make sure that we're getting that full length of our foot going all the way around for our ronde de jambe. Another thing that I tend to see when we are practicing would be not putting our heel to the ground all the way when we're closing, or when we are lifting. So by this I mean we tend to extend and we forget about all the work we put in for our tendus, and we just kind of lift a little bit, and I'll see sickling sometimes, and we shortcut the entire move. So what we want to see is an extension all the way through our tendu that we've already worked hard to achieve, all the way around. And for some reason, it always hits in the back where we don't like to get that heel all the way down to the ground. We need to make sure that we're closing it like our tendus. To give a side view of that, we want to make sure that, again, we go through our tendu to the front, all the way around to the back, being sure to get to that fourth position, and make sure that we are melting through our tendu to get our heel to the ground as we close, instead of keeping it open and letting our foot just kind of graze and not getting our heel down. And we tend to leave that heel propped in the air. When we go to do our faster ronde de jambes, this really becomes a challenge, because then we tend to keep our heel up as we're going around instead of doing the complete movement and melting whichever direction we need to go. Another challenge also found with ronde de jambes is when we go to do our grand ronde de jambe and ronde de jambe en l'air. So for our grand ronde de jambe, it becomes really easy to drop our leg and then try to rise it back up, and we tend to tilt. So to combat that, you need to really make sure that you're pulling up out of the hips and allowing your leg to rotate in that hip, but then you have to roll the hip in order to keep that leg straight. One of the ways that I ask my dancers to practice that is keeping an eye on the leg itself and watching that height as it rolls around instead of focusing on the hip. Once we see what the height is of our leg all the way around, we'll go back and correct our hip placement. A good way to work on that is using the lines in the room that are horizontal to watch that placement of the leg. Another area would be our ronde de jambe en l'air, in which case it becomes easy to let the knee swing around instead of really opening back in the thigh and using our turnout, and again, keeping the focus on the lower part of the leg. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check back tomorrow as we start talking about our frappes. I'll see you then.